My terrifying vacation turned into a cursed nightmare. And something followed me home. I never should have opened that door. I can still feel the chill creeping up my spine just thinking about it. It started like any other vacation, palm trees swaying, the soothing sound of ocean waves. But there was something off. A whisper in the wind warning me, don't go there. Of course, I didn't listen. I was exploring this strange, forgotten part of the island when I stumbled upon an old rickety house. The wood was rotten, the paint peeling, covered in dark, tangled vines. It looked like it hadn't seen a visitor in decades. Curiosity pushed me forward, my heart racing with an exciting fear. What secrets lay inside? Stepping over the threshold, the air turned cold, heavy with the scent of damp earth. Shadows danced in the corners, lingering just out of sight. I could feel the floor creak beneath my feet, as if it were alive, warning me to leave. The walls were lined with pictures, faces twisted in horror, eyes wide with dread. They seemed to watch me. Then, a noise broke the stillness. A soft creaking, almost like a whisper calling my name. My heart thudded in my chest. I turned, only to find nothing but shadows stretching in the corners. The weight of silence pressed down on me, thick and suffocating. Still, I pushed deeper into the house. The air turned colder, chilling my bones. I could hear something shifting, a rustle, low and threatening. Fear gripped me. I thought I could smell something metallic, like iron, digging under my skin. That I hesitated, breathing heavily. The temperature dropped, and my breath hung in the air like a ghost. Would I make it out? The walls seemed to close in, whispering secrets I was too afraid to hear. The floorboards groaned ominously. I jumped as a picture fell from the wall, shattering on the ground. It felt like the house was alive, trying to expel me, to keep its secrets buried. Racing back to the door, I felt a presence behind me. A chill swept over me, freezing my movements. I turned, and there it was, a dark figure, barely visible in the shadow, its eyes glinting like two burning coals. I opened my mouth to scream, but the air left me. And then, the door slammed shut, echoing through the silence like a death knell. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Panic surged through me as I pressed against the door, desperate to make my escape, but it was relentless. The figure stood just beyond the veil of shadow, its presence radiating a palpable malevolence. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but my body felt anchored, entrapped by an invisible force. The air grew thicker, a miasma of dread enveloping me. I could hear whispers now, a cacophony of voices swirling around me, mud-soaked and gravelly. They spoke in a language I didn't understand, an ancient dialect echoing with despair. It was as if the walls themselves sought to share their torment, their secrets clawing at my mind. Leave before it's too late, one voice hissed, close enough to send a jolt of ice through my spine. I darted my eyes around, searching for an escape, but each direction felt condemned. The figure moved, a slip of shadow gliding toward me, glacial and silent. In a moment of sheer desperation, I stumbled backward, knocking into an old, dusty table. It quaked and trembled then, springs screeching in protest, as it teetered perilously, scattering an assortment of long-forgotten trinkets. Tarnished charms, rotting photographs, and what looked like a small, delicate hand mirror. As the mirror clattered to the floor, it shattered with a piercing crack, each shard glinting like shards of fractured tranquility. Little did I know that the instant it broke, the very essence of the house seemed to shift. The air thickened further, morphing into a putrid blend of decay and despair, engulfing me like a tide threatening to pull me under. The figure lunged, first creeping along the floor, a serpentine shadow slithering through the splintering wood. I finally regained enough sense to turn and run. I sprinted toward the window, clawing at the rotting frame, panic igniting my every movement. But the darkness whispered through the cracks, wrapping around me, urging me to surrender. As my fingers fumbled against the glass, I saw movement in the reflection more than just my own terrified face. Behind me, the figure was shifting, morphing from shadow into flesh, though the features remained obscured. Glowing embers of its eyes bore into mine with an insatiable hunger, a promise of violence that twisted my stomach. "Release us," it rasped, its voice like brittle leaves in autumn. "You have awakened what should have stayed buried." There was no time. I felt it, the extraordinary weight of something awakened, something ancient and hungry not just for souls, but for chaos. I squinted through the translucent shards of glass, desperate to find a way out, but nothing outside the house seemed grounded in reality. The world beyond the window warped and twisted in grotesque visions. Trees contorted into monstrous shapes, roots rising like serpents from the soil, and the sky pulsed with a spectral glow beneath a blanket of furious clouds. The air trembled with dread as I quickly turned, backed up against the window, searching for safety in the grip of madness. But I was met with startling anguish. The dark figure was no longer alone. Shadows crawled from the crevices, finding form twisted remnants of those who once dwelled in this house, their ghastly visages relentlessly etched with terror. They dragged closer, joined in silent agony, faces writhing in unrelenting sorrow. A hand like ice grazed my arm, sending shivers blaring through me. My vision spun as I realized the truth. Each specter had lore intertwined with my own being, tethering me through a shroud of pain and misery. "I want to go home," I cried out, my voice barely a whisper against the cacophony of shattered souls. But before I could utter another word of defiance, the figure lunged, spectral hands reaching for me. Thorny tendrils erupted around me, gripping tight, anchoring me to this nightmare, while the sorrows began to curl into my thoughts like serpents around my heart. Then, from deep in the shadows, a voice, familiar and haunting, rang clear as a silver bell. "You can't escape me." My breath caught, lungs constricting in terror as I realized that the voice wasn't from the lingering phantoms but from inside my own head. A face began to emerge from the thickening gloom, twisting into view, and I suddenly recognized the contours of the one who had taken the first step into this house of horrors. My own face, distorted by anguish and sadness. As realization struck, the ground shook beneath me, threatening to swallow the house whole, as if the very earth conspired against us. Shadows hissed and recoiled, while my sinister double lifted a trembling finger, pointing directly at me, whispering, "It's your fault and I will never let you go." Just then, the house itself screamed, collapsing inward, and with a heart-stopping thunder, everything turned. I was falling, dragged through a spiral of despair, as dark laughter echoed into oblivion. And then, darkness consumed me completely. Awareness returned slowly, like the fog clearing from a haunted landscape. I gasped, lungs burning, eyes snapping open to a room dressed in an eerie calm. The walls, splattered in peeling paint, held an oppressive stillness that felt heavier than before, burdened with the whispers of the past. But I was alive. I could feel the cool, solid floor beneath me. I blinked, pulling myself to my elbows, nerves dancing like flames in my gut as I tried to shake off the remnants of my recent nightmare. My heart thudded painfully against my chest, racing with terror that clung to the air like the fine dust motes swirling in the weak light that filtered through a dirty window. But it wasn't the faint light that held my gaze. No, it was the sound, the unmistakable sound of something shifting just beyond the room, like nails scraping softly against wood. A chill swept over me, prickling the base of my neck. Instinct urged me to run, but panic paralyzed me. I forced my trembling limbs to obey, pushing against the floor, slowly rising to my feet. The tranquility of this room horrified me. What kind of darkness had I pulled into this modest abode, where no warmth lingered in the air, only the remnants of despair? A flicker of movement caught my eye, and I turned, dread pooling in my stomach. A shadow slipped just out of view, vanishing around the corner of the hallway. It was the same predatory grace that had once stalked me in the house of horrors. My breath quickened, and I stepped cautiously toward the door, but the moment my foot touched the threshold, it flew open, revealing an expanse of gloom that spiraled into the unfathomable. "Please, don't," I begged, voice quaking as I saw the shadow linger on the edges of the darkness. It coiled in place, vibrating with a violent energy, and for a moment, I dared to hope it would recede. But instead, it advanced. The air thickened again, pregnant with an agonizing presence. "You belong to us now," the voice whispered, raspy and foreboding, echoing in my bones like a death knell. I flinched, the weight of its words pulling at the remnants of the resolve I held so desperately that I tore my gaze from the living shadow and bolted into the hallway, each step reverberating against the creaking floorboards as they cried out in protest beneath the strain of my fear. I needed to reach the door, to escape into the outside world where sunlight washed everything in brightness. But as I neared the front door, the latch clicked audibly like a finger snapping, and a rush of cold air blew through the gaps around it, laden with the scent of mildew and decay. "No!" I screamed, grappling with the handle, my heartbeat crescendoing into a frenzied panic. The door wouldn't budge, as though it had fused to its frame through centuries of neglect and despair. With a deafening roar, I turned back, consuming by the shadows enveloping the hallway, and saw them, the specters from the house, their features unmistakably familiar, moving in a grotesque dance of sorrow as their faces twisted in anguish. They pointed toward me, mouths agape in silent screams, eyes sunken and filled with despair. "You called us back," they chorused, their voices merging into a chaotic melody of madness that echoed through the corridor. My own face swam before me, twisting into myriad expressions, all of them pleading, all of them riddled with regret. "No, no, this can't be happening," I wailed, collapsing to my knees, fingers clawing at my hair as a manic energy thrummed in the room. I thought of the shattered mirror, the moment the soul bonds had been forged. I thought of my hands, trembling, as I called upon darkness while trying to escape. Panic morphed into rage. "Please, just leave me alone," I roared, heart on fire, the air thick with desperation. But as soon as the words left my lips, the walls shook, splintering the reality I had known, and from the fissures emerged a viscid darkness that dripped like oil, pooling at my feet. A blinding flash exploded from the unfathomable abyss, followed by silence. But that silence simmered with anticipation, filling the room with pointed tension. And then, from the new darkness, a figure materialized, its shape barely discernible at first, clothed in shadows, but its fiery eyes glowed like embers in the night. "It's time to make a choice," it said, voice oozing with malice. "You can leave this wretched place behind, but know the cost." Terror washed over me, erasing every shred of defiance, leaving nothing but a paralyzing dread. What cost? What unspeakable price was I willing to pay? I opened my mouth to protest, but before any sound could escape, the shadows surged, wrapping around me, pressing down, constricting as a cacophony of voices swirled and clamored in my mind. And in that instant, I was drawn to the depths of that darkness, pulled into inky voids that beckoned. Images flickered, faces I recognized, memories I longed to forget, all twisting together in a maelstrom of despair. "No, I will not be chained," I screamed into the dark, even as the shadows crushed against me tighter, squeezing the breath from my lungs. "The choice is made," the being thundered, its presence growing more tangible, and then, in a blinding flash, a world ripped open around me, louder than a scream yet deeply quiet. I felt myself plunge deeper into a realm where nightmares came to life, where I was the puppet and the strings were being pulled ever tighter. "Embrace what you have unleashed," the shadow whispered, a sinister breeze billowing through my very essence. "You will wish you never answered the call." Just as I thought I would vanish into that endless void, everything abruptly went silent, darkness blooming like a flower, and the world ceased to exist for a split second. And then, just as I thought I'd finally escaped into some semblance of sanctity, something cold and bony clasped my wrist, and I was yanked into a familiar hallway, a door opening wide at my back. Yet now, the shadows were no longer malleable. They pulsed and writhed, and whatever awaited me on the other side pulled me toward it with relentless hunger. All I could remember was the face that had taken its first step into the cursed night, a face I didn't want to recognize. And then it hit me, we were not alone. Peering out past the threshold, that face grinned knowingly. And what truly followed me home was beyond anything I could bear. The familiar laughter echoed through the hallway, a sound that should have ignited warmth but twisted into something grotesque, echoing with malice. "Welcome back," the voice chimed, a slick coating of familiarity drenching every syllable. My heart sank, recognition clawing at my throat until I could hardly swallow. It was her, Amanda. I hadn't seen her since that wretched day at the house, the one that plunged our lives into chaos. My arm throbbed where the shadow had gripped me, a reminder that my tether to reality had frayed. I forced myself to take a step back, but the door behind me was solid, an impenetrable barrier brimming with unspoken horrors. How could you be here?" I stammered, each word a painful thrust against the despair gnawing at my resolve. Amanda's grin widened, a grotesque parody of the friend I had once known. Her eyes reflected a madness I hadn't seen before, swirling with dark mischief, as though they held the answers to secrets best left unspoken. "Oh, the usual. Just checking in." The shadows behind her lurched, reminded me of serpents coiling in anticipation. "It's not safe for you to be out there alone," she continued, voice dripping with innocent sweetness, yet undercut by a chilling undertone that slithered into my bones. "Especially after what you've summoned." "Summoned?" I repeated, every word laden with disbelief. The suffocating memories of the darkness within that house rippled through me like venom, flooding the corners of my mind. I didn't mean to the mirror, it was an accident. "Accidents don't happen in this realm, darling," she chuckled lightly, as if we were sharing a joke no one else could understand. "You held the power, and now it's awakened." I could feel the weight of it, the reality of what I had unwittingly released clawing at every shred of sanity I had left. I turned from her, eyes darting, searching for an escape. But the air crackled with tension as whispering shadows skittered along the floor, crawling toward me like insects. They flickered and beckoned, ushering forth the anguish of the spirits, stifled cries that echoed against the walls of my mind. "Those are just the beginning," Amanda crooned, as if she could taste my fear and it delighted her. "They've been waiting. All those souls in torment, you see. You're now destined to dance in the darkness with them." "No. You can't drag me back there," I shouted in defiance, every word a desperate plea for freedom I knew was slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. The shadows danced about my feet, but there was something deeper, an exhilarating sense of power intertwined with the fear. It thrummed within me, begging for release. "Just embrace it," Amanda whispered, her voice an insidious caress. "You're more like me than you realize." Before I could respond, the air vibrated, thickening with anguish and despair. A grotesque figure emerged with horrifying clarity, eyes hollow yet blazing with ethereal fire. It was as if the very walls had exhaled the essence of those who had been trapped within. "You called us," it rasped, the chorus of those long gone swirling and merging until I was engulfed in their lamentation. "No," I cried out, instinctively trembling as the earth shifted beneath me, and suddenly, the shadows lunged, slick and ravenous, toward the door where Amanda stood. She laughed, that sinister melody echoing through the hallway, and as the shadows reared closer, my instincts screamed for escape. "Join us," the essence of the collective whispered, its voice a thousand mournful echoes bleeding together like a symphony of sorrow. The shadows stretched, wrapping around my limbs and dredging up memories I'd buried but never truly escaped. "You must decide," Amanda said, her expression shifting slightly, a glimmer of something darker combating the facade of playful banter. "One way or another, you belong to this world now. Choose your ties carefully or be consumed." I stood rigid, the gravitational pull of their despair weaving tighter, constricting around my heart, every breath steeped in the depths of regret. The burden of those eternal glares weighed heavily upon my shoulders, and as the shadows pulsed with life, I felt an inexplicable urge to reach out to them, the memories tugging me down toward oblivion. Before I could indulge in the dangerous thought, the ground shook violently, an upheaval of souls drowning in anguish. Walls cracked, radiating a sickly light as torn fragments of the past and specters of lost hope unspooled around me. Above, shadows twisted and spiraled, forming unnatural shapes that twisted my understanding of reality. "Do you hear them?" Amanda pressed, urgency lacing her voice, a fusion of temptation and fate. The truth, the pain of choices made and unmade. "They want you." And in that moment, I was torn between worlds, the taunting allure of shadowed promises and the flickering light of the past that fought to break through. But as I glanced back toward Amanda, my heart stopped. She was becoming something else, a wraith bound in shadow, a mirror of what I might soon transform into. "Choose," she screeched, her fingers elongating like talons, inching closer, hungering. And just as the spiraling chaos captured me within its folds, I reached for the door, praying desperately for one escape, one last glimmer of hope. But the door slammed shut, the echoes of countless doomed souls ringing louder than my own scream, drowning out everything as I felt myself cascading into the dark once more. And then, from the depths of the shadows came the voice I'd first heard, intimate and haunting. "We're back home," the entity hissed, its words dripping like poison. Gripped by pure terror, I realized where we were going. The house had never truly released me into darkness. Its door would open wide once more. A scream erupted from my throat, but no sound found its way out. I was already forsaken, already one of them. What awaited me on the other side would be a reckoning. The shadows enveloped me, a cacophony of haunting echoes in relentless pursuit. And as the darkness rumbled with laughter, I realized far too late that home was just the beginning. The question loomed with cruel clarity. Could I escape the horror I had once turned my back on? Or had I released a nightmare that was always meant to claim me? The room twisted like a funhouse mirror, the very air thick with the stench of decay and despair. I felt the shadows seep into every crevice of my mind, elucidating a horror I had barely begun to grasp. The whispers crescendoed, a wicked symphony that pulsed with unrelenting insistence, dragging me deeper into the murky underbelly of the house's haunting legacy. "Welcome back, dear," each voice crooned in synchronous despair, sending chills racing along my spine. Their hunger was palpable. It enveloped me like swirling smoke, mightier than the dread that gripped my heart. Was there truly no escape, or had my cowardice intertwined my soul with this rotten tapestry of forgotten hopes? I stumbled backward, my breath hitching in my throat as a cold draft surged through the room. The air turned electric, tinged with the faintest echoes of laughter, the sound of children playing in a long-buried garden that had been suffocated under layers of feasting shadows. Then came the voice again, the mirthful pitch of Amanda, trembling with anticipation. "They awaited you, sweet angel. Are you ready to play?" The ground buckled under me, and I fell to my knees, desperately trying to grasp the last vestiges of reality. I clawed at the carpet with trembling fingers, praying for a thread to hold on to, but it slithered away, as if aware of its own betrayal. I could almost see their fizzing energy, shimmering and grotesque, urging me forward into a void of trepidation. Suddenly, the walls of the house, once solid and familiar, began to ripple like water disturbed by a stone. The darkness shimmered, offering fleeting glimpses of what lay within, images of broken homes, anguished faces, picking up speed as they spiraled toward me. Each visage screamed for release, their mouths moving in a silent torment that pierced the core of my being. "Join us, become one of us," the entity hissed, its voice resonating from the darkness like the scratching of nails on a chalkboard. The shadows twisted and melded, forming ghastly figures whose eyes glinted with malice. I could feel each sin creeping back into memory, the betrayal of friendship, the laughter that had masked sorrow, the choices taken without thought. "No!" I screamed, the sound exploding around me, ricocheting until I believed the very foundations would shatter. "Get away from me!" But the shadows lunged forth in a frantic wave, the cacophony of despair growing louder, stinging my ears and inflating the terror within my heart. I could see Amanda's face morph once more, The twisted familiarity burrowed deeper into my core, revealing hints of vulnerability amidst the monstrosity. "Help me," she cried, but the plea was lost in the tide of the multitude. I felt her agony claw at me, a splintering echo that became a hammer to my heart. I shut my eyes, but the visions seeped through my eyelids. Bright, vivid memories interspersed with the torment of the incandescent shadows. Amanda, her laughter, our shared stories at the lake, those moments of bliss that now twisted under the weight of fate. Remember how it felt to summon them, to wield such power? The voices taunted, slithering through the fog of my recollections. Can all be yours again? Grappling with the edges of my sanity, a primal instinct drove me towards the door that now shimmered and warped at the far end of the room, its handle beckoning to me like a siren in the night. Every frantic beat of my heart grew deeper, resonating with the very core of the shadows that clawed and grasped at me, holding tight with spectral pinches that felt unbearably real. "Flee if you wish," they shrieked, laughter bursting forth like a wave as they bore down on me. But amidst the terror, a fierce resolve ignited. I would not become prey, I would fight. That I surged to my feet, limbs heavy with desperation, and charged towards that beckoning threshold. The door pulsed like a living creature, the wickedly contorted handle glimmering like a dark jewel. I grasped it with both hands, certain that pushing through meant tasting freedom, returning to the world I once thrived in. Just as I twisted the handle, the ground beneath me shook violently. The cacophony collapsed into a singular roar, and in that fraught moment between my determination and the creeping dread, I felt a chilling breath rush over my ear, displacing the resolve I thought I had. "Don't you want to say goodbye to your friends?" it whispered sweetly, the darkness curling around my limbs like a lover. With a shriek, I yanked the door open, my breath hitching with suspense. But as I leapt through, the threshold slammed shut behind me, the very air thickening and quaking with wrath. Confusion swept through me. I found myself in a darkened hallway, the echoes of laughter now distant but still insistent, grating against my resolve, and then, as silence enveloped the confines, I turned to confront the other side. What stood before me was not the sanctuary of escape I sought, but a flickering reflection, a mirror suspended in air, swirling with a malevolence that shimmered with the faces of those who had come before me. From the depths emerged a figure, a twisted, distorted version of myself, eyes alight with the embers of those I had abandoned. It grinned, lips peeling back in a rictus of delight. "Welcome home," it hissed, the delight twisting into something darker, something that made me wonder just who was truly at home now, with nowhere left to run and my heart now drumming with impending doom. I reached out instinctively, my fingers brushing against the glass that warbled and twisted under my touch. In a breathless moment, the truth settled like cold steel in my core. There was no escaping what I had become, and then the mirror shattered, sending dark shards cascading toward me, revealing not only the reflections of my past but a deeper horror waiting hungrily in the shadows around me. 1,000 lost souls, eyes wide with fear, their collective cries merging into a desperate howling, a warning too late for me to heed. The darkness surged, each shard containing another piece of my fate, and I felt myself drawn inexorably into the void, a tidal pull of forgotten choices and forsaken promises. In that moment, I understood this was merely the beginning of my true curse. The shards flew like daggers, slicing through the air, reflecting chaos and dread as they encircled me. I recoiled, instinct screaming to retreat, yet the horror held me captive, a proxy of my own soul's descent into madness. Each splintering piece of glass resonated with anguished echoes, laughter twisted into wails, faces trapped in eternal despair. They came alive, swirling around me like a tempest. "Find us," they cried in unison, an orchestra of sorrow that tore at my sanity, each note sharpened with malice. I stumbled backward, pressing my back against the wall, my heart a drum thrumming in the silence left in their wake. "Stop!" the plea erupted from my lips, but my voice was swallowed by the darkness. I was alone, yet surrounded by a cacophony that only I could hear. I don't belong here, but I was wrong. I did belong in the depths of this nightmare forged by my past transgressions. The shadows curled around my feet like serpents, whispering truths I had buried deep. Each memory felt like a wound tearing open, sharper than the fragments of the mirror around me. "Do you remember, sweet angel?" The voice of Amanda echoed, teasing and terrifying all at once. "Remember when you chose yourself over us? You could have helped. You fled. And now you're here to join us to pay the price." In that moment, the realization hit me hard. I was entangled in the very fabric of this darkness, stitched into the tragic story spun by my own inaction. I could feel my breath quickening, heart racing as each vibrant flash of realization punctured the walls I thought I had built against my past. "No!" I shouted, and launched myself forward, moving through the shards still cascading down, as if they could harm me more than the suffocating grip of my guilt. I would not die here. I could not. Through the chaos, I glimpsed a light, a flicker of illumination just beyond the swirling shadows. Hope surged, a wild instinct whispering for me to run towards it. My feet, heavy earlier, responded with newfound urgency. Each step pulled me closer to that promise of escape. But the shadows lunged, brushing against my skin, their fingers cold and searching. "You can't escape what you are," they hissed, voices intertwining like the roots of a twisted tree. "You'll always come back, child of the abyss." I barreled forward, pain flaring as the shards grazed against me. But adrenaline eclipsed it all. With one last push, I broke through the dark cyclone, the light enveloping me, washing over my anxious heart. I found myself in an empty corridor, stunned and panting. The walls felt familiar, yet alien, a tangle of memories dancing just out of reach. Echoes of past laughter faded gently now, replaced by a menacing stillness. "Where are you?" I whispered to the space, taking a deep breath, willing my panic to subside. But even as I steadied myself, I sensed that I was not as alone as I wished to believe. The atmosphere thickened like fog, a suffocating presence creeping closer. And then I saw the door at the end of the corridor, slightly ajar. A guttural whisper curled around it, the shadows seeping through the cracks like smoke, enticing and foreboding. An anxious thrill shot through me, and I hesitated. "Don't be afraid," that crooked voice crooned, blending eerily with the shadows. "Your friends are waiting." My heart faltered. Could it be? Did I dare open that door and face what lay beyond? Or would it be another chance to abandon those I had lost? The choice hung heavy in the air, thick with implications and ghosts of the past. I took a step closer, hands trembling, drawn inexorably to an unknown fate. With a shaky breath, I reached out gingerly toward the door's handle, the space alive with the electric pulse of shadows pressing all around me. The call of the familiar drowned out my reason, a siren call from a deep, dark ocean. And just as I was about to grasp it, the air crackled violently, as if the house itself was gearing up for rebuke. I paused, gripping the frame tightly. What awaited on the other side? Would I find solace or further descent into darkness? The shadows brushed my feet again, whispers rising in deceptive harmony. "Play with us, sweet angel, it's time to decide." My heart raced. And in that moment, I knew whatever waited behind that door was a truth I could no longer ignore. The handle was icy under my palm. As I pushed it down, the door creaked open, revealing a void deeper than night. Shadows coiled within, beckoning me forward. I felt the familiar tightening in my chest, a mix of fear and longing. What lay beyond this threshold? I hesitated, gripping the door frame as if it could ground me against the pull of the unknown. I could hear voices, soft whispers that danced around the edges of my mind. "Join us, come play," they slithered into my thoughts, tempting, teasing. With a deep breath, I stepped inside, my heart pounding like a war drum. The moment I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me, sealing any escape. The air inside was thick, stale, weighed down by the memories that clung to the walls like cobwebs. A faint glow flickered, illuminating a room strewn with toys, broken dolls, crushed action figures, and twisted remnants of childhood joy. A chill crept up my spine. This was a graveyard of innocence, tainted by neglect and sorrow. As I took a cautious step forward, I heard soft giggles, echoing in the shadows. They surrounded me like the echo of a haunting tune. We've been waiting for you." The voices were childlike and sweet, but layered with a sinister edge. "Why are you here?" I dared to ask, my voice trembling as I spoke to the void. "Because you chose to leave us," one voice cried out, sharp and anguished. It pierced through the laughter, making the room vibrate with tension. "You ran away when we needed you most." My heart dropped. Memories volleyed in my mind, an old friend caught in a dark place, my cowardly retreat echoing louder than their cries for help. "I didn't know," I shouted into the darkness, desperate to make them see. "I didn't mean to abandon you." Silence engulfed me, heavy and unyielding. Then, one by one, spectral forms began to emerge from the darkness. Faces twisted in anguish and rage, lips trembling with accusations and sorrow. I staggered backward, feeling the weight of their stares like 1,000 daggers piercing my skin. "Look at what you left." Amanda's voice rang out, a haunting melody that sent tremors through my spine. "You could have saved us. Now we're forever trapped." I shook my head, hands raised defensively. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean sorry." "One bring us peace," another ghost wailed, twisting in the air like smoke. "You'll pay for your cowardice." Panic took hold. I turned to escape, but the shadows thickened, wrapping around my ankles like chains. "No," I cried, yanking myself free and sprinting toward the door. But it was gone, swallowed in the dimness like a secret too painful to reveal. "What do you want from me?" I screamed into the darkness, my voice trembling but resolute. "I can't change what happened. Yet you can join us," said a voice echoing soothingly. It was soft yet commanding, slithering into my ears with an unsettling comfort. "You can share in our despair. Embrace the truth." The shadows drew closer, suffocatingly intimate, their whispers combining into a heaving tide that threatened to drown me in despair. Memories surged like a tidal wave, each one a sharp knife cutting through my resolve. I fell to my knees, breathless, wrestling with the anguish that threatened to consume me. "What do I have to do?" I gasped, desperation clawing at my throat. An anguished laugh echoed around me. "It's time to make a choice. Will you stand with us in the darkness, or will you fight to break free?" The air quivered with tension as I stood frozen, the room spinning around me. I could feel countless eyes watching, waiting for my answer. A door of opportunity flashed in front of me, a way out of this nightmare and the grasp of my past. But what would that price be? "Choose wisely, sweet angel. The past doesn't let go easily," came the murmurs like a haunting lullaby, and I knew I had to decide before the shadows claimed me forever. What awaited me beyond this point? Would my choice resurrect them, or would I become just another anguished whisper in their tragedy? The pulse of uncertainty drummed in my ears as I steeled myself to face the depths of my own fear, and the price I might have to pay for my freedom was looming closer than I dared imagine. I felt the weight of the room press down on me, thick with sorrow and regret. Every ghostly gaze burned my skin, and their whispers filled my ears like a swarm of angry bees. "Choose, choose," they urged, their voices a haunting chorus that spiraled and twisted around me. What choice? My brain raced, heart pounding in rhythm with my mounting dread. I had come to face my past, hoping to find some closure. But here I was, trapped in a living nightmare, within a realm thick with despair. Did I really have the power to change anything? "Join us," the ghostly figures implored, their faces growing more desperate, and I felt their anguish clawing at the corners of my mind. "Relive the moments, feel our pain." I shut my eyes tightly, attempting to block out their cries. "I can't. I want." Panic surged, raw and sharp. The memories hit me like tidal waves. Amanda's laughter turned into sobs, the echo of joy morphing into haunting despair. "Fight back." A deeper voice boomed from the center of the room, cutting through the chaos. I opened my eyes, and my gaze landed on a child standing defiantly amongst the apparitions. The little girl's eyes sparkled with determination, defiance shining through the spectral sadness surrounding her. "You don't have to be like us. Why are you here?" I whispered, all washing over me. "I'm not like them," she replied, her small voice ringing clear above the din. "You can choose hope. Don't let their darkness pull you in." The shadows flickered, hesitant, confusion rippling through them. "She is a liar," another apparition shouted, its voice dripping with venom. "You can't escape." But that child, she ignited a spark within me. I stood taller, breaking through the suffocating veil of despair. "What do I have to do?" I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls. "Choose life. You can be free," the girl urged, stepping closer, her form shimmering like silk. "But to break their hold, you must confront what you fear the most." "What is it? What do I fear?" My voice was shaky, hovering somewhere between anger and desperation. "The truth." The child's gentle reply wrapped around me like a warm embrace, soothing my frayed nerves. "You ran away, but you can still turn back. Face their stories, listen to their pain, and accept your role in it." As the shadows closed in, their cries grew louder, demanding and furious. But now, instead of fear, I felt overwhelming sadness for them, for Amanda, for every child who felt abandoned. Their misery was not just theirs, but a part of me too. "But how?" I begged, my voice breaking as the air crackled with tension. "Remember," the girl pointed, and suddenly a vision burst to life around me, a flash of memories, all intertwined with my own. The laughter, the pain, the choices I had made. Each image seared into my mind, vivid and visceral. I could see my cowardice, my retreat from their suffering, leaving them behind in darkness. The memories whirled faster, dragging me down a dark path of regret. I gasped, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of it all. "Face it," the girl shouted, her eyes fierce. "It's your past too." With each rushing memory, I could feel an invisible tether pulling me toward the darkness. But this time I fought back. I refused to let the past bind me. Wind surged around me, and I screamed, "I'm sorry." It felt like a cleansing fire, burning through guilt and anger. The shadows hesitated, retreating as if my declaration shook their hold. Their wails turned into a cacophony of confusion. "Join us," one whispered again, desperation clawing at the words. "No," I cried, shaking my head fiercely. "I will not be another ghost hanging on to pain." The little girl nodded slowly, pride glistening in her eyes. But just as I sensed my victory, the very foundation of the room began to tremble. The air thickened, swirling into a tempest of rage and sorrow. A voice roared from the depths of despair. "You can never escape." Panic surged once more, and I realized the struggle wasn't over. What if I was wrong? What if breaking free only unleashed their wrath? As the walls around me began to crack and splinter, I felt everything I had fought for was about to collapse. I had to make my final decision, and the stakes were higher than I could imagine. What would happen if I truly chose to confront my past? Would I find redemption, or would it consume me entirely? With the room shaking violently around me, I braced myself for what was to come. The room heaved and groaned, every crack and splinter racing my heart. Shadows flickered, their faces twisted in a mix of anger and anguish. I felt their grip trying to pull me into their eternal night. Each heartbeat was a countdown, one that led to my doom or deliverance. "Stay strong," the little girl yelled above the rising tide of despair. "You're not alone." But even her voice wavered, swallowed by the dark void enveloping us. I could feel my thoughts fragment, scattered like broken glass, each shard reflecting moments I thought long buried. Amanda's laughter echoed again, merging with the discordant screams of those I'd left behind. I squeezed my eyes shut, attempting to recapture my focus, searching for a way out before the darkness consumed me. "Face the truth," the girl's voice cut through my fear, direct and unwavering. "You can't run from it anymore." What truth? Did I really have the courage? As if sensing my doubt, the spectral wails rose to a fever pitch. "You cannot deny us," they screeched, voices crashing over one another like waves in a storm. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their expectations, their desperate need for recognition. The realization hit me hard. I was more tethered to them than I had ever wanted to admit. I buried the truth, thinking it was for the best, but all it did was allow their pain to fester and grow. "Okay," I whispered, my heart acting like a wild drum in my chest. Okay, I'll face it. I'll listen. The declaration felt foreign, the very act forcing me to confront all the guilt and regret that had settled into my bones like ice. With newfound resolve, I opened my eyes. The shadows parted just enough to reveal a scene, a memory floating like a film reel, sharp and clear. I saw myself, younger, walking away from the park where Amanda sat alone. Her joy turned to gloom in an instant. My own cowardice had shackled her. Crafting a bond one had thought severed. The apparitions surged forward, their faces a mix of fury and sadness. "You left us," they screamed, their voices colliding like thunder. It became deafening, a tempest of accusations, each word stabbing deeper into my heart. "No, I was wrong," I shouted, the warmth of sincerity rolling off my tongue. "I didn't want to see. I thought I was saving myself, but I see now I hurt you all." The echoes of my words filled the room, momentarily drowning out their cries. A gasp rippled through the figures, and for the first time, I saw cracks in their torment. They leaned in closer, drawn by my from fear to acceptance. "Forgive me," I pleaded, my voice a soft tremor. "I can't change the past, but I can honor you now. I'll remember. I will share your stories with each word." The shadows paused, the tumult around me settling into an eerie silence. Perhaps redemption was possible. Perhaps just by acknowledging their pain, I could forge a path toward healing, not just for them, but for myself too. But just as hope began to glimmer, the ground split beneath me. The room buckled, creating a chasm that threatened to swallow us whole. "You think you can escape this?" A low growl reverberated through the air. "You've awoken a force beyond your comprehension." My breath caught in my throat. A figure emerged from the darkness, larger than life, too shadowy to define. Its presence made the very air shimmer with dread, a dark power that sent my instincts soaring. "Step back," the girl shouted, her voice steady despite the terror swirling around us. But where could I step? The very ground was crumbling apart. What did I unleash? I gasped, realizing the broken chains of my past might not just bring light, but something far more sinister. The figure loomed closer, its piercing gaze locking onto mine. "You'll pay for awakening the long-buried pain." Fear seized me as I stumbled back, unsure of the path ahead. The room was collapsing, and the shadows were not the only things I had to worry about. Could I confront this entity and find peace? Or had I merely summoned another nightmare that would haunt me forever? My heart raced, blood pounding against my skull. The reality of my choice clawed at me. Will my journey bring salvation, or would it spell my doom in the end? As I braced against the shifting ground, every heartbeat whispered the question. Was I ready for the ultimate confrontation? The darkness coiled around me, suffocating and insistent, promising wrath and revenge. The entity loomed closer, embodying every fear I'd tried to evade, every regret I'd buried deeper than the shadows of that cursed house. My breath quickened. The air thickened with an acrid tension that demanded I make a choice. As I hovered on the precipice of despair, I glanced at the little girl, the spark of defiance shining in her innocent eyes. "Stand tall," she urged. I felt the surge of her courage wash over me. This was my moment. "Leave," I shouted, forcing the words into the stagnant air, feeling a strength rise from deep within me. "You have no power over me." The darkness shuddered, as if my declaration struck a chord. The entity paused, invisibly recoiling from my sudden fire. "You awaken forces beyond your understanding," it hissed, a shriek that pierced the rising tension like glass shattering. But behind that abhorrent rage, I heard something else, a flicker of uncertainty. It rattled the confidence I had just found. "No more," I cried again. "You're not a part of my story anymore. The souls you bind to your anguish are free." With every word I spoke, memories flooded back. My laughter echoed with Amanda's, the innocence we shared before darkness claimed her. The truth of my abandonment, the choices that had left so many behind. I accept it all. "I embrace your pain so that we can heal," I proclaimed, feeling the shadows wane, the cacophony of anguish dulling to whispers. The entity loomed closer, eyes ignited with fury, Yet I stepped forward, determined and resolute. Your time is over. These souls will not remain trapped for your delight. The darkness rippled at my challenge, swirling furiously, almost pleading for my acknowledgement. Foolish girl. The voice rumbled in the depths of its fury, shaking the ground beneath us. You think you can sever the ties forged in misery? Yes, I do. I screamed, breath-catching, yet unyielding. I may not change what was, but by facing it, I break the bonds tethering me to regret. They're free. The shadows twisted violently in response, thrashing against my conviction. Flee while you can. The girl urged me, stepping beside me, shimmering with that haunting light of hope. I turned to her, my heart heavy yet lightened with courage. I won tea back down. I whispered, my voice a fervent declaration laced with empowerment. I faced the entity, feeling the ground tremble, and then drew strength from the faces surrounding me. Amanda, the forgotten children, their anguished stories rising like a tide against the darkened force. In that moment, with unwavering resolve, I focused. I envisioned the shared memories filtering through, weaving together a tapestry of light, of vivid brilliance that breached the oppressive darkness. Drenched in empathy, I let it burst forth, a radiant explosion of color and warmth that enveloped us all. The entity raged, but the light expanded, swallowing it whole, dispersing the darkness like ashes on the wind. This is my truth, I shouted, letting it clasp the shadows around me. I'll share it every day, honoring you all. You are free. You deserve peace. Suddenly, a thunderous roar erupted, reverberating through the room as the shadowy form faded, its cries of protest dissolving in the blinding glow of release. The ground steadied beneath me, the dreams of despair fracturing like glass, revealing bright openings and escape, a pathway lined with safety. With a trembling breath, I turned to the faces forming around me. Amanda's eyes glimmered now, no longer twisted in anguish but softened by warmth. Thank you, she whispered, a fragile smile breaking through. And one by one, the spirits reached out, joining the light. They shimmered for a moment before dissipating into the air, their colors mixing with the warmth of dawn pressing through the cracks around me. And then silence fell, heavy yet delicate. The walls crumbled and faded, revealing fresh air, sunlight cascading through a forgotten door, leading to a brighter path. I took a deep breath, stepping forward into this new light, free from the bonds that once confined me, redeemed by the power of acceptance. I stepped outside, trembling but alive, limbs shaking with the weight of grief released. I had faced the darkness within me, understood my fears, and awakened a strength that would never abandon me again. The sun warmed my skin, illuminating my path, and in that beautiful moment of clarity, I understood. This wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning, a second chance, where each breath, each choice, would be a tribute to my journey and the many souls lost before me and in the distance. I could hear laughter, echoes of joy woven into the world around me. It felt familiar and comforting, a promise unbroken. My heart swelled, casting away shadows as I walked, knowing that now, truly, I was home. Remember, this can't be the end of our story. You need to subscribe now to catch all our exclusive content. Don't you dare miss out. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and keep this community alive. Flood the comments section. Share your reactions, your thoughts, your theories about everything that just happened. Let your voice be heard. And finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It's time to spread the light.